God's chosen ones. Beloved chosen one, heaven has interrupted time for you. Everything around you may feel normal, but in the spirit, everything has shifted. This is not a coincidence. This is not a scroll through just any message. This is divine interruption. Heaven has activated your name. You were not supposed to miss this. Your ears were designed to hear it. Your heart was prepared to receive it. Right now, God is pulling your name forward in the realm of the Spirit. While the world was busy counting you out, heaven was marking you in. While others were searching for applause, you were being hidden because the hidden ones are the chosen ones. The ones buried in silence, forged in tears, tested in private. Your story is not random. Your pain is not wasted. There is a prophetic seal over your life that is being broken open in this moment. You were never designed to blend in. You were never meant to be ordinary. That's why comfort never lasts long for you. That's why normalcy irritates you. Because inside of you, a divine fire has been waiting to be lit. That fire is not ambition. It is not ego. It is divine purpose, screaming to be released. You are not watching this by chance. You were summoned. You don't need another affirmation. You don't need another conference. You don't need a bigger audience. What you need is already inside you. Obedience. That's the final key to the door you've been banging on. Your next level is not waiting on favor. It's waiting on your yes. Heaven has paused all distractions around you, all noise, all scrolling, to tell you this is your activation moment. There is a reason your name kept coming up. There's a reason strangers sense something different when you walk into a room. There's a reason your enemies can't stop talking about you, even when you try to disappear. You carry heaven's fragrance. The mark on your life cannot be erased. No matter what you've done, where you've been, or how broken you feel, this seal was never based on your perfection. It was based on divine election. You are the answer to someone's prayer. You are the breakthrough someone else has been fasting for. You are not just a person, you are a spiritual weapon formed by God. A living scroll now being unrolled for this exact hour. That stirring you've been feeling, that holy restlessness, that sense that something bigger is coming, it is not your imagination. It is your spirit responding to the divine announcement. And make no mistake, the seal is not light. It's heavy, because the oil you carry costs weight. But God did not call the light-hearted. He called the surrendered. He called the ones who would say yes when it doesn't make sense. He called the ones who would obey when it hurts. That's why he chose you. It is written in Isaiah 43. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. He did not call you because you are flawless. He called you because you are willing to be set apart, willing to be misunderstood, willing to carry what others dropped. The seal isn't for decoration. It's a divine instruction. So take this moment seriously. This is not hype. This is not motivation. This is holy. This is sacred. God is calling your name across dimensions. He's waking you up from spiritual slumber. There is a scroll with your name on it. And the angels are moving on your behalf. Not tomorrow. Not next week now. Type 999 in the comments if your spirit is stirring. If you feel the tears without knowing why. If you sense the weight of destiny pressing on your chest. Type 999 as a prophetic act. Not for me, but as a sign that you receive this heavenly charge. That you are ready. That you are done hiding. That you know this is for you. And if this word has struck you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this with another chosen one. You never know who is seconds from giving up. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay connected. This is not the end, it's only the beginning. You were marked before birth, before anyone knew your name. Heaven had already written it down. Long before you were given a label by people, before they called you too sensitive, too intense, too strange, God had already sealed you as set apart. When you were still in the womb, He spoke your destiny into existence. Not one moment of your life has been accidental. Not one tear has been meaningless. Every detail about you was chosen with precision. Your voice, your mind, your peculiarities, even your scars, none of it is random. You carry the fingerprint of divine design. While others were being shaped for general purpose, you were being carved for a sacred one. You were not mass-produced. You were handcrafted in secret. That's why you've never fully blended in, even when you tried. That's why no matter how hard you attempted to copy others, it never kept fit. Because you were not born to mimic. You were born to lead. You may have thought your wilderness disqualified you, but in God's economy, the wilderness is the qualifying ground. Moses was shaped in exile. David was trained among sheep. Joseph was misunderstood in a pit before he ever stepped into the palace. What felt like isolation was actually insulation. You weren't abandoned. You were preserved. Hidden not because you were forgotten, but because you were too valuable to be exposed too soon. And now the appointed time has come. The seal is awakening because the purpose is maturing. You are not who you used to be. Something in you has shifted. You've started to notice it in your language, in your discernment, in your hunger for truth. The old games no longer amuse you. The old patterns no longer fit. You are no longer comfortable with spiritual crumbs. That's a sign that your soul is remembering its assignment. When people tried to define you by your trauma, heaven refused. Heaven did not allow your identity to be written in pain. You may have walked through fire, but fire did not own you. You may have been broken, but brokenness did not name you. The hand of God reached through your history and placed a seal on your future. You are not your childhood. You are not your betrayal. You are not your mistakes. You are the one chosen to break the cycle. You are the one anointed to reverse the curse. Your dreams were never ordinary. You thought they were just dreams, but they were glimpses. Glimpses of a future heaven was calling you into. You thought the visions were your imagination, but they were previews of a divine storyline. You were sensing things in your spirit before you had words for them. That's because heaven always speaks in eternity before you ever hear it in time. People around you may have been puzzled by your hunger. You asked questions others didn't care to ask. You desired depth when others were content with surface. You longed for intimacy with God that religion couldn't satisfy. You searched for purpose in places where no one else even realized something was missing. And that ache, that dissatisfaction, it wasn't rebellion. It was divine longing. It was the seal on your soul, awakening from dormancy, even when you walked away. Even when you tried to silence the call, it never left. Even when you numbed yourself, the pull was still there. God was never far. He let you run, but He never let you go. Because He knew when the appointed time arrived, everything would align. That time is now. The moments you cried out in silence, heard. The nights you wanted to disappear, witnessed. The hours you spent wondering why you were even born. Written in heaven's memory, God does not waste any of it. Your story is part of someone else's deliverance. Your survival is not just for you, it's for the ones assigned to your voice. You carry keys that unlock other people's prisons, and that's why the enemy tried to silence you. As we read in Jeremiah 1, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. That is not poetic exaggeration, it is eternal fact. You were not an afterthought. You were foreseen, foreordained. Heaven had plans for you before earth gave you a name. You must begin to see yourself as heaven sees you. No longer as a person trying to qualify, but as one already chosen. You don't need to impress God. You don't need to perform to be seen. You simply need to remember who you are. Every time you second-guess yourself, darkness rejoices. Because if you ever fully embraced who you were created to be, hell would tremble. You carry the imprint of glory, the kind that cannot be replicated, the kind that calls out demons by presence alone. You are not just different, you are disruptive. That's why you've attracted warfare. That's why some people couldn't stand to be around you without even knowing why. Your very existence disturbed their comfort. Your light agitated their darkness. But you were not built to dim. You were built to burn. You are fire wrapped in flesh. You are thunder disguised as humility. And the earth has been groaning for the rise of the ones like you. Those who will not bow to fear. Those who will not be bribed by comfort. Those who know that obedience is costly, but disobedience is deadly. There are assignments waiting for your voice. Territories waiting for your step. Generations waiting for your obedience. You are not late. You are not behind. You are arriving right on divine schedule. The moment your eyes opened this morning, angels were on assignment. The moment you took that breath, the Spirit whispered, "It's time." And when doubt tries to rise again, when old insecurities knock on the door, remember this: you were marked before time. That means no time can cancel you. No man can disqualify you. No system can override heaven's decree. You belong to the one who authored the stars, and his hand is upon you still. You're not crazy. Chosen one. You're called. The fire in your chest, the weight on your shoulders, the dreams that never die, all of it has been pointing to this truth. You've always known, even when you didn't have the language for it. Something about you has never quite fit into the mold. You were the one who saw deeper, felt harder, asked questions. Others were too afraid to voice. They called it overthinking, but God called it divine sensitivity. You've walked through rooms that felt wrong without knowing why. You've carried burdens that weren't yours. You've wept for people you barely knew. These were not emotional imbalances. These were spiritual awakenings. You were sensing warfare in atmospheres where others only saw smiles. You were discerning principalities behind polite conversations. You were picking up frequency from heaven while others were tuned to noise. And when you spoke, they didn't get it. When you felt too much, they dismissed it. When you pulled back to rest, they misunderstood it. But all along, you were being trained. Not in a classroom, not with applause. You were being shaped in the shadows. The Holy Spirit has been your teacher, and pain has been your syllabus. Chosen one. The battles you've faced weren't random. The nights you couldn't sleep weren't about insomnia. The opposition didn't come because you were weak, but because hell saw your anointing before you did. They noticed the seal before you were even aware it was there. You were dangerous before you even knew how to pray. You were powerful before you learned how to fast. Even in your ignorance, you were glowing. That's why they left you. That's why they laughed. That's why some tried to break you. Because they saw it. Your anointing made you a target, and yet you survived. You may be bruised, but you're not broken. You may be tired, but you're not finished. You may feel alone, but you are not abandoned. Every twist in your story was designed to strip you of false identity. Every heartbreak was allowed to awaken your real name. You had to be crushed, not to destroy you, but to release the oil. Oil is only released through pressure. You prayed for power, and God allowed the press, not because He hated you, but because He trusted you. You asked for purpose, and He gave you pain, because He knew you would rise from it, not bitter, but bolder, not damaged, but determined. Stop waiting for their approval. They can't see what God sealed. Stop hoping they'll understand. They weren't in the room when God called you. Stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You were born to disrupt. Your voice carries authority because it's been refined in fire. Your steps are ordered because they were mapped out in eternity. Even your delays were under divine orchestration. There is nothing wasted. No trauma beyond redemption. No season beyond purpose. You are the evidence that God still breathes through people, that He still chooses the misunderstood, that He still uses the rejected. Look back at your life. How many times did you almost give up? How many times did you settle? Then feel something shake you loose again. That wasn't coincidence. That was mercy. God would not let you abort your calling. He would not let you stay hidden in places He never called you to blend. You were not born for survival. You were born for dominion. You carry blueprints that hell has no counter to. You've been given keys that cannot be stolen. Even when you wandered, grace followed you. Even when you sinned, the seal remained. The calling never left. It simply waited. Paul reminds us in Ephesians 2, "Sure, for we are God's masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." You were not just saved to be safe. You were set apart to build, to shift, to heal, to war. That's why the warfare over your life has been so strategic, because your calling is generational. It's bigger than you. There are bloodlines attached to your obedience. Territories will open when you speak. Chains will fall when you move. Darkness will tremble when you rise. That's why the enemy tried so hard to numb you, to distract you, to break your rhythm. Because once you remember who you are, it's over. Once you walk in full identity, it's war. But not the kind of war you think. You don't fight for victory, you fight from victory. The moment you said yes to God, heaven stood behind you. And every demon that once had legal access to your life lost its ground. You are covered. You are shielded. You are chosen. So when the doubts come again, and they will remember this, you were never crazy. You were hearing eternity whisper. You were seeing beyond the veil. You were dreaming in the language of heaven. And now, the time has come to walk in it. With boldness. With clarity. With authority. Type, "Mark me, Lord." Let it be your cry, a prophetic signal to heaven that you are ready to be sealed, claimed, and used for divine purpose. You come from a warrior bloodline. Heaven has recorded your ancestry, and it does not begin with pain, it begins with power. The world may have handed you a story of dysfunction, abandonment, or generational wounds, but in the spirit, You descend from the line of the unshaken, of prophets who stood before kings, of intercessors who broke curses in silence, of unnamed warriors who stood in prayer until the heavens opened. This is why the fire has never consumed you, because you were born from flame. When others melted under pressure, you sharpened. When others gave up, you pressed in. Even in your lowest moments, something inside you refused to die. That wasn't pride. That wasn't ego. That was blood memory. The Spirit testifying with your spirit that you come from a line that bows to no idol and flees from no Goliath. God has always used a remnant, always chosen the ones overlooked by the world. The warriors who aren't dressed in armor but clothed in surrender. The ones who don't speak much, but when they pray, the atmosphere breaks. You are not the exception. You are the continuation. The legacy of those who chose obedience over comfort, fire over compromise, truth over applause. Your battles have been many, not because you're weak, but because of what you carry. The level of resistance you've faced reveals the level of threat you are to the kingdom of darkness. Hell does not waste its resources on someone with no spiritual consequence. Your very presence threatens the enemy's territory. From a young age, you were tested. Early betrayal, emotional storms, constant rejection. These were not signs of being unwanted, they were the markings of being heavily anointed. The enemy wanted you to believe you were cursed, so you'd never realize you were crowned. But deep inside, you always knew you were different. And that difference was never a defect, it was destiny. It's time you stop questioning your strength. You've survived storms that should have buried you. You've navigated seasons with no roadmap and endured heartache with no rescue. And still, you kept going. Still, you kept believing. Not because you had perfect faith, but because your name was written in heaven's fire. The same God who called Elijah to stand alone against hundreds of false prophets has not changed. The same Spirit that filled Gideon in his fear, Deborah in her silence, David in his youth, that Spirit is now stirring in you. You carry more than just survival. You carry weapons. Prayer that shifts timelines. Worship that tears through principalities. Words that carry weight in the unseen realm. You don't just walk, you march. Every step you take sends vibrations through the spirit world. And whether or not people recognize it, demande d'eux. That's why your warfare has often been invisible. Attacks without explanation. Delays with no visible cause. Confusion when things should be clear. The enemy has tried everything to keep you entangled. Not because he's afraid of where you've been, but because he's terrified of where you're going. And yet, in all of this, God has never left your side. He has stood quietly through your questions. He has wept with you in the crushing. He has defended you in rooms you've never entered. While you were begging him to change your surroundings, he was transforming your spirit, making you into someone unshakable, someone who doesn't collapse under pressure, but sharpens in it. It was declared in Psalm 18, Saint-Chassis, he trains my hands for battle, my arms can bend a bow of bronze. He has been teaching you to war, not with bitterness, but with authority, not through vengeance, but through vision. You are being trained for something greater than comfort. You are being equipped to break chains others have accepted as normal. This is why isolation has been your companion, not because you're unwanted, but because you were being preserved, set apart, conditioned for a glory that can't be explained in casual conversation. The depth of your consecration matches the height of your calling. You've been asking God for answers, but sometimes The answer is in the crushing. Sometimes, the fire is the confirmation. Heaven is not building celebrities. It is raising soldiers. God does not need another performer. He is seeking the surrendered, those who will stand firm when others run, those who will protect truth, even when it costs them reputation. And that's why your name is being activated now. Because the war has intensified, the line has been drawn, and you carry the sound of freedom. This is not about church attendance. This is about kingdom inheritance. You carry fire in your voice, clarity in your silence, strength in your surrender, and as you step further into obedience, you'll realize nothing you went through was wasted. Not one delay, not one night of weeping. Every part of it was holy preparation. So stop downplaying your strength. Heaven didn't make a mistake when it chose you. You've been through too much, grown too deep, seen too much to go back to normal. Normal was never your portion. You weren't born to take up space. You were born to take territory. You come from a warrior bloodline. Heaven knows your name. Hell fears your future. And the earth is waiting for you to rise. The seal has fallen. This is not symbolic. It is not poetic language. It is divine reality. A heavenly decree has been made, and your name has been activated in the Spirit. Something eternal has shifted, and the timing is no accident. You are not late to your assignment. You are precisely on schedule. Because heaven doesn't work on man's timeline, it moves according to eternal design. There are moments in a person's life that divide everything into before and after. This is one of those moments for you. The seal marks the after. After the silence, after the hiding, after the wondering whether you were ever seen. The seal is God's evidence that He never forgot, that every whispered prayer, every ache in your soul, every unseen act of obedience, it was all recorded, all honored. This seal is not a decoration. It is an activation. When heaven seals a person, the atmosphere around them responds. Things begin to align. People start to shift. Environments either open up or close off. Not because you are forcing it, but because the spiritual realm is recognizing a name now charged with authority. The authority you now walk in was forged through fire. This is not charisma. This is not performance. This is not church theatrics. This is the result of countless private battles, surrendered moments, and quiet yeses that no one else witnessed. You may have felt small in your wilderness, but now the heavens are roaring over you. This one is mine, chosen one. When the seal is released, you don't have to strive. You don't have to fight for position. You don't have to audition for favor. Heaven's endorsement breaks open the gates that no man can shut. Opportunities are no longer your concern. Obedience is. The doors assigned to your name will swing open when the time is right. Because sealed ones don't chase. Sealed ones carry. People will begin to notice, but they won't know why. Some will be drawn to you, others repelled. It's not personal. It's the seal. When Jesus was baptized and the heavens opened, the Spirit descended like a dove, and the Father said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." That moment was more than a blessing. It was a seal. And immediately after, Jesus was led into the wilderness. Because seals don't prevent battle, they prepare you to overcome it. Do not be surprised if things shift around you suddenly. Do not be alarmed if the familiar becomes uncomfortable. When you are sealed, comfort is no longer the compass, calling is. And calling will always stretch you into places your flesh would rather avoid. but you must trust that the God who sealed you is the same God who will sustain you. This activation is your divine signal. Angels have been dispatched. Assignments have been released. The enemy has been notified. Yes, your sealing is not a secret. Hell recognizes it too, and it will do everything it can to distract you now, to pull you back into doubt, into busyness, into fear. But none of that has power over a sealed one who knows who they are. It is written in 2 Corinthians 1, Ashar. He set his seal of ownership on us and put his spirit in our hearts as a deposit, guaranteeing what is to come. You are not walking through life guessing anymore. You are marked. You are claimed. You are infused with promise. There is no higher confirmation than the seal of God. Chosen one. From this day forward, your words carry weight. Your prayers shift atmospheres. Your worship releases angelic movement. Don't hold back. Don't shrink. Don't explain away your fire just to make others comfortable. You've been sealed to be set apart. Let it show. Let it shine. Let it interrupt the darkness. Everything in your life that tried to break you has now become evidence that you were being built for this moment. The pain trained you. The loss refined you. The loneliness sanctified you. And the seal now confirms you. It says, "This one belongs to heaven. This one walks in divine authority. This one cannot be touched by what used to torment them." You'll notice it in how your discernment sharpens, in how your peace becomes unshakable, in how your hunger for truth grows deeper. Because the sealed don't feed off entertainment, they crave revelation. The sealed don't panic. They posture themselves in prayer. The sealed don't chase status, they chase presence. This is the dividing line for you. The moment everything changes, not externally first, but internally, you will never see yourself the same way again, because heaven has called your name out loud, and silence is no longer an option. So let your spirit rise in agreement. Let your soul breathe again. This isn't the end of the journey, it's the unlocking of your true beginning. The seal is not a trophy, it's a sword. And from now on, every step you take is warfare. Every word you speak is prophecy. Every act of obedience is territory claimed. You don't need to explain it to everyone. Most won't understand. That's okay. They didn't hear what you heard. They didn't feel the weight of the call in the midnight hour. They didn't sit in silence while the Spirit whispered destiny over your broken places. They didn't feel the fire in your bones when you were about to quit, but couldn't, because the seal wouldn't let you. Heaven is speaking now, louder than ever, and the response is not more striving. It's surrender, it's silence, it's stillness that says, I receive. That's the posture of the sealed. That's the identity of the chosen. Not louder, just deeper. Not bolder in ego, but in faith. Let others chase platforms. Let others seek approval. You were sealed for glory, for battle, for breakthrough. You were marked for miracles, branded for kingdom business, and your time has come. Like this message, if your spirit is burning, share it with someone whose name is also echoing in heaven. Subscribe to stay connected. This journey has only just begun. If this message stirred something deep within you and you'd like to support more moments like this reaching others, consider pouring back into this mission. Every seed sown helps carry fire to those still waiting to awaken. Something has awakened in you, hasn't it? You've felt it not with words, but in the way the air seems heavier around certain moments. How time slows when you feel that sacred tug on your heart. You've noticed that the usual distractions don't hit the same anymore. The songs, the screens, the noise, they can't compete with what's stirring inside. Because once your name has been activated in heaven, your appetite begins to change. You're not craving attention. You're not chasing titles. You're hungry for something deeper, for real truth, for unfiltered presence, for purpose that shakes the dust off your bones. That's how it starts. The divine discomfort, the longing that won't leave, the holy ache that pulls you away from the crowd and into the secret place. It's not that you're becoming antisocial. It's that your soul has remembered its origin, and in that remembering, everything false begins to fall off. The masks, the performative spirituality, the desire to be seen, it begins to rot in the presence of real fire. And you can't go back to fake once you've touched what's holy. This is not a phase. This is not emotional. It's spiritual. You're waking up to your scroll. There is a script with your name on it, written in eternity before you ever breathed your first breath. You've been living pieces of it without realizing. The passion you had as a child, the moments where you knew something was off, even when no one else noticed, the repeated resistance, the patterns of silence and sudden divine interruption, all of it has been pointing to the truth. Your life was never random. You are here on assignment. But heaven does not force what it invites. You must accept the scroll. You must say yes. Not with fanfare, not with performance, but with sincerity. That kind of yes is costly. It may cost your comfort. It may cost your timeline. It may cost relationships that were never rooted in covenant. But it births legacy. It releases power. Some of the most pivotal shifts in Scripture happened not with a battle cry, but with a whispered yes. Mary said, "Be it unto me." Isaiah said, "Here I am." Jesus said, "Nevertheless, not my will." These aren't dramatic slogans. These are the language of surrendered warriors. And now, it's your turn. Not because you're better than others, but because you're willing. Because in the quiet, God saw your hunger. When others were posturing, you were listening. When others demanded clarity, you simply stayed near. And so, the scroll has been unsealed. It won't look how you thought. It rarely does. You may be called to speak when you'd rather stay silent, or to stay hidden when your flesh craves spotlight. You may be asked to leave familiar ground with no clear direction, except one word: go. But obedience is the only compass you need, because sealed ones don't follow maps. They follow fire. This is what has always set the chosen apart. Not their eloquence, not their resources, not even their confidence. It's their obedience, their unwavering, trembling, surrendered, daily yes. And that yes begins to change everything. It silences fear. It dismantles lies. It loosens chains around others who are watching your life, wondering if God still chooses people like them. Because someone is watching you, not with judgment, but with hope. They've seen you suffer and not collapse. They've watched you stand when everything tried to bury you, and your obedience is becoming their proof. Proof that light still overcomes darkness. That holiness still disrupts hell. That surrender still births glory. Chosen one. This scroll is not a death sentence, it's a resurrection call. A summons out of shallow living and into deep water. A divine reminder that you were not just born, you were sent. And now that you know, you cannot unknow. That's why the tension has increased. That's why the warfare has been unusual. Not because you're failing, but because you're aligning. Hell fights alignment more than it fights talent. Because once you're in position, things start moving. Heaven begins backing your voice. Strongholds begin breaking under your breath. Territories begin trembling because your footsteps have become prophetic. There's a reason some doors have closed. A reason certain circles grew cold. You're not cursed. You've been calibrated, pruned for promise, stripped of what would have poisoned your assignment. And now you walk differently. You speak with more weight. You discern more quickly. You resist compromise more fiercely. That's not pride, it's sealing. It's the oil that comes after the crushing, the authority that flows after the yes. As we read in Ezekiel 3, Son of man, eat what is before you. Eat this scroll, then go and speak to the people. It was never just about receiving, it's about responding, taking what's written and living it out in real time, in real places, among real people who need real freedom. This scroll you carry is not for hoarding, it's for releasing, and you don't need a pulpit to preach it. Your life will speak louder than any microphone. Your choices, your stillness, your resistance to compromise, they will all bear witness to the God who marked you. You don't have to be perfect to walk in it. You just have to be willing, because this isn't about you, it's about His glory manifesting through your availability. So take the scroll. Let it read you as you read it. Let it disrupt your plans. Let it rewire your desires. Let it cost you everything temporary so you can gain everything eternal. Your life was written in fire. Now let that fire speak. The enemy always knew, long before you realized who you were, long before you heard God whisper your name, darkness recognized your light. Before you ever uttered a prayer of surrender, the kingdom of hell marked you as a threat. That's why the battle started early. That's why your life has never been simple. The enemy saw your potential, your purity, your authority in waiting, and he panicked. From childhood, the warfare began. Rejection, abandonment, confusion. It wasn't that you were cursed. It was that you were carrying something too precious to be left untouched. That's why the attacks were so strategic. They weren't random. They were orchestrated attempts to fracture your identity before it had a chance to fully form. But what the enemy didn't count on was this. You'd survive. Broken, but not bitter. Tired, but not taken out. Bruised. Yes, but still standing. And now you've awakened. Now you see it. You're connecting the dots, realizing that what was meant to destroy you actually trained you, that the pit taught you how to pray, that the betrayal taught you how to discern, that the silence taught you how to hear God's voice in stillness. The enemy's tactics have failed, because everything he sent to break you has only sharpened you. That heaviness you carried for years, it forged intercession. That confusion you endured in isolation, it became discernment. That shame that tried to silence you, it gave way to boldness. You've been tempered like steel in the fire, and that's why your presence now carries a weight that can't be faked. You don't need to announce your authority, it walks in before you do. Spiritual warfare isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like endless fatigue, sudden fear, mind games, miscommunication, strange delays. You used to think it was just life, but now you know it was resistance, because hell has studied your potential longer than you've known you had any. This is why certain environments became uncomfortable for you. Your spirit outgrew what your circumstances could contain. People around you started getting uneasy. Conversations shifted. Doors you thought were blessings began to close. It wasn't sabotage, it was divine extraction. God was pulling you out before the counterfeit could contaminate what he sealed. Even now, the enemy would love nothing more than for you to slip back into confusion, to believe this moment is just hype, to question whether you're really chosen. But let's be clear, the enemy's fear of you is the confirmation you need. He would not fight what wasn't marked. He would not resist what wasn't rising. You carry the kind of oil that breaks things open, and hell knows it. That's why every relationship that tried to pull you off track felt so weighty. That's why every distraction came wrapped in what looked like an opportunity. Because if the enemy can't curse you, he'll try to compromise you. If he can't destroy you, he'll try to distract you, just long enough for you to delay your destiny. But that delay is ending now, because your awareness has increased. You no longer live from reaction, you live from revelation. And with that comes clarity, focus, fire. You're not playing defense anymore. You're advancing. That stirring you feel in your spirit is not anxiety. It's spiritual motion. Things are shifting because you're finally stepping into alignment. And when the chosen begin to walk in alignment, strongholds tremble, territories respond, systems shake. Because you are no longer negotiating your calling. You're owning it. You've passed through fire that would have incinerated others, and now the flame burns through you instead of around you. You're no longer afraid of the heat, because the heat is where you were born. Jesus said in Luke 10, "Shudyo, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions, and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you." That's not metaphor, that's your inheritance. You don't just survive attacks, you dismantle the source. Chosen one. There are enemies still plotting against the version of you that no longer exists. Let them. Their weapons are outdated. Their intel is old. You've been upgraded in the spirit. You're not just walking, you're marching with angels beside you and fire on your words. And from this point on, your response to opposition will no longer be fear, it will be revelation. When resistance arises, you won't ask, "Why is this happening?" You'll declare, "Something must be breaking through." Because it is. You are. And now that you know hell fears your name, walk like it. Speak like it. Pray like it. Obey like it. Type 777 if you feel the confirmation in your spirit. The number of divine completion. The mark of it is done. Let it be your signpost. Heaven has spoken, and you're walking forward, unstoppable. This is why you don't fit in. No matter how hard you've tried, no matter how deep your desire to belong, the current always pulled you away from the crowd. You could mimic their language, wear their clothes, perform the parts, but something inside you always whispered, "This isn't home." You weren't created to blend in. You were crafted to stand apart. Even in seasons where you tried to silence your depth, something would trigger it again. A conversation, a moment of stillness, a dream that wouldn't let go. And suddenly, you'd remember you are different, not superior, not elite, just set apart. There's a cost to being chosen. The first price is isolation, not forced by others, but orchestrated by God, because separation always comes before elevation. Before He reveals who you are publicly, He shapes you in private. You've cried over the distance, felt the sting of being misunderstood, but it's not rejection, it's refinement. You weren't sent to echo the room, you were sent to shift it. You weren't assigned to follow trends, you were born to disrupt them. And so, naturally, you don't blend. You don't find comfort in compromise. The popular path always made you uneasy, because your spirit was never wired for the shallow end. You've been called peculiar, too much, too intense, too serious. But what others call too much, heaven calls exactly enough. Your intensity is an indicator, a signal that your life was designed for weightier things. The ones who carry light burdens never understand those chosen to carry fire. It's not your fault that some connections faded, that people you loved couldn't walk with you. You didn't change overnight. Your spirit evolved through obedience, through consecration, through stretching. And with each step forward, the space around you shifted. Not everyone was meant to survive your transformation. Some only knew how to hold the version of you that hid. That version no longer exists. When God begins to activate the real you, He also begins to dismantle everything attached to the false. Friendships, environments, even your own inner narratives. The lie that you needed approval, the lie that you had to dim your fire to make others comfortable, the lie that said your silence was peace when really it was fear. He's clearing the room, not to leave you empty, but to make space for what aligns, for the people who recognize your sound, for the assignments that mirror your calling, for the clarity that cannot come when you're crowded by compromise. You've always been the one who sees what others miss. You pick up what they overlook, feel what they suppress. That level of sensitivity isn't weakness. It's spiritual intel. It's what makes you effective. But it also makes you feel foreign in a world that celebrates numbness. And yet, you still try. You still give. You still love with your whole heart. Even when it's risky, because your soul isn't built for surface. You're not wired for shallow exchanges. That's why casual culture exhausts you. You need depth, truth, presence. The kind of atmosphere where spirits are stirred, not agos stroked. It's not that you're difficult, it's that you're called. And the more you accept this, the more peace you'll find in your difference. You're not missing out. You're being preserved. The silence is not punishment. It's preparation. Your spiritual DNA has always been different. You feel drawn to ancient paths. You're stirred by things others find boring. Prayer, consecration, solitude, they feed you. They rebuild what life tries to deplete. That's how you know. You don't need signs and wonders to prove you're chosen. Your appetite proves it. What you crave is a reflection of where you're going. And where you're going is narrow. It won't be crowded. It won't be applauded. But it will be sacred. That's the walk of the chosen. A path paved not with popularity, but with presence. Not with affirmation, but with anointing. And if you've felt out of place your whole life, it's because you were born for a place not built yet. God is carving out space in this world for those who don't belong to it. You are one of them, a remnant rising, a voice trained in fire, a soul that remembers eternity too vividly to find rest in what's temporary. And the moment you stop resisting that difference, everything begins to align. Purpose clicks, joy returns, peace flows. Not because circumstances get easier, but because your soul stops shrinking to fit what it was, never meant to serve. You were never meant to fit into broken systems. You were meant to build new ones. Never meant to follow every voice. You were meant to echo only one. Never meant to wear what others wear. You carry a mantle tailor-made in heaven. As we read in Romans 12, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's not just advice, it's identity. Conformity will always be too tight on someone made for transformation. Chosen one. It's time to breathe in your difference like oxygen, to wear your calling without apology, to walk with the confidence that comes not from being understood, but from being obedient. You may not fit in, but you do belong, not to the crowd, not to the algorithm, not to culture. You belong to the one who made you different on purpose. You've entered the battlefield, whether you feel ready or not. This is not just a season, it's a realm where silence becomes strategy, where your very presence becomes provocation to the darkness. And the truth is, you've always been in the fight. You were born into it. But now, the armor fits. Now, you understand what's happening. This awareness is not paranoia, it's precision. God has been sharpening your senses so you could stop reacting and start responding. You are not fighting for a crown. You already carry it. The real war is for your focus, for your discipline, for your voice. The enemy can't touch your seal, so he aims for your consistency. If he can't possess you, he'll try to exhaust you, to wear you down through delay, distraction, detours. The battlefield is not always external. Sometimes it's in your thoughts, in your sleep, in the strange heaviness that comes when you try to step into obedience, and yet you're still moving, still choosing holiness over convenience, still turning down what the flesh craves for what the Spirit commands. That's warfare. Every no you whisper to the counterfeit is a sword against darkness. Every time you intercede instead of collapse, heaven records it. Every time you worship in weakness, the ground beneath your feet shifts. This fight has never been about survival. It's been about assignment. The enemy isn't after your comfort, he's after your effectiveness. He fears what you unlock when you walk in obedience. Because when you do, captives are set free. Cycles are broken. Generational curses crumble under your feet. You are not just in the fight, you are the fight. The vessel God is using to push back spiritual terrain that others have surrendered. That's why it's been so intense. Not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. And every time you've wanted to walk away, something pulled you back. That wasn't guilt. That was purpose. There's something inside of you that refuses to quit, even when your body is tired and your mind is numb. That is evidence of your calling. The endurance isn't yours, it's heaven's oil flowing through your yes. Do not mistake stillness for stagnation. You're not stuck, you're being fortified. Not every fight is loud. Some of the fiercest battles happen in the quiet. The war to stay pure. The war to stay focused. The war to remain tender in a hardened world. And you've been winning in ways only heaven sees. Your armor doesn't shine because it's new. It gleams because it's been used. Dented by betrayal. Weathered by heartbreak. Strengthened by surrender. The enemy tried to strip you of it, but the more he pressed, the more the Spirit forged it to your frame. You wear obedience like a weapon now, and the enemy sees it. He trembles when you wake up, because he remembers the last time you worshipped through your tears. He knows what happens when you speak, what happens when you lay hands, even in weariness. He knows that when you show up, angels move with you. He remembers every time you chose truth over applause and fire over fame. The weapons formed against you didn't prosper, but they did train you. You now carry not just stories, but strategy. You've learned what voices to silence, what doors to close, what environments to flee, and more than anything, you've learned how to hear the still, small voice in the chaos. That's what separates warriors from wanderers. You are no longer moved by noise, because you've learned the power of stillness. You've discovered that the greatest victories aren't always public. Some happen in secret, in unseen moments of prayer, in late-night cries of God. I trust you anyway. Those are the victories that shift atmospheres. And now, there's a shift happening again. But this time, you are not being caught off guard. This time, you're standing planted, rooted, eyes open, spirit alert. Paul writes in 2 Timothy 2, San, endure hardship with us like a good soldier of Christ Jesus. You've been drafted into divine warfare, not because you were the strongest, but because you were willing, and now the war around you is matching the war for you. There are things breaking right now, not just around your life, but beneath it. Foundations that weren't solid are crumbling. Attachments that served their season are being severed. And even as the earth shakes, your footing remains, because your roots go deeper than they did last year. You're not who you used to be. The world will try to measure your progress by visibility, but heaven measures it by obedience, and by that measure, you are advancing. Every time you chose God when it cost you something, you gained ground. Every time you silenced your flesh to follow the whisper, you took territory. You're not just holding your position anymore, you're taking ground. Slowly, quietly, unapologetically, and you don't need to announce it. The Spirit already has. There's a boldness being stirred in you that doesn't look like pride. It looks like peace, the unshakable kind, the kind that walks through fire and doesn't flinch, the kind that speaks truth in love but doesn't dilute it to avoid conflict. You've been prepared for this. The shaking didn't break you, it built you. The silence didn't kill you, it calibrated you. The warfare didn't stop you, it shaped your sword. And now, you walk with the authority of someone who has endured. So stand tall, warrior, not because the battle is over, but because the warrior in you has been fully awakened. There has been warfare over your name since the moment you took your first breath. Before anyone spoke a blessing over you, curses tried to take hold. Before you could even speak identity over yourself, the world was already trying to rename you. Rejected, abandoned, forgotten, unworthy. But heaven never changed its declaration. In the midst of all the false names you've carried, one truth has remained constant. You are chosen. Every attack you faced wasn't just about your peace, it was about your purpose. Hell knew your name before you did, knew the sound of your voice, knew the impact of your obedience. And so the fight began, not because you were weak, but because your identity posed a threat. This is not just poetic language, it's spiritual reality. You felt the pressure, the tension, the constant sense that something invisible was pushing back against you when you tried to move forward. That wasn't coincidence. That was coordinated resistance. But here's the good news. Resistance is proof of relevance. The enemy only wars against what matters. You matter. Your assignment matters. Your purity matters. Your obedience matters. Your very presence shakes darkness because you walk in light, even on the days you feel dim. And now that you've awakened to the truth of who you are, everything has started to make sense. The betrayals, the cycles, the dreams you couldn't shake, the heaviness that seemed out of proportion with your situation, all of it was about keeping you out of alignment. Because the moment you align, things break open. God is not done with your name. In fact, He's just getting started. What you thought was the end was simply a reset. You've been reset with clarity, with fire, with the kind of authority that can't be taught, only forged in secret battles. Chosen one. You've faced warfare not because you're cursed, but because you're called. That calling has weight. That name heaven gave you, sealed in eternity, has power. And now, as you begin to walk fully in it, the enemy is terrified, because a chosen one in motion is unstoppable. There's nothing casual about your existence. Your name has been whispered in divine strategy rooms. Angels have been assigned to your path. Prophecies have been planted inside of you. And yes, the enemy has tried everything to delay, confuse, and distract you. But here you are, still standing, still listening, still ready. That alone is evidence of your authority. And now, with every step you take in obedience, the warfare that once overwhelmed you will begin to obey you. Because when you walk in alignment with heaven's name for you, hell loses its grip. That old label they tried to put on you, it's breaking. That shame you carried for years, it's dissolving. That guilt, that fear, that belief that you'll never be enough, burned away in the fire of truth. Isaiah 62:2 says, "You will be called by a new name that the mouth of the Lord will bestow." God has always had the final word over your identity. Not trauma, not critics, not your past, not even your failures. Just Him. And He calls you anointed. He calls you appointed. It calls you set apart. It calls you His. That is the name hell fears. From this moment forward, let your walk match your name. Let your choices reflect who you really are. You are not wandering, you are being summoned. Your steps are not random, they are routed. And every time you align with who God says you are, heaven backs you with power. You are no longer who life tried to make you. You are who God called you to be. So, if this word has stirred something in your spirit, don't let it fade into the scroll of your day. Let it become a declaration. Let it seal something deep within you. Like this message, if you feel the confirmation in your bones, share it with someone whose name has also been under attack. Speak life to your own soul. Remind yourself of who you are. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're not just making noise. We're making movement. Type, "I am marked," a simple act of alignment with heaven's declaration. And if this message resonated and you feel led to partner with this calling to help carry prophetic fire into more hearts across the globe, you are welcome to support the mission. No pressure, just presence. Your seed helps push light into places still held in shadow. Because the fight is real, and the name on your life is holy. You thought you were delayed. You thought the doors weren't opening because something was wrong with you. That maybe you weren't praying hard enough, fasting long enough, obeying well enough. But none of that was true. The truth is, the delay was divine. You were being timed by eternity, not by the clock. And that is something few understand. The things of heaven are not rushed. They are refined, measured with intentionality, because the weight you're called to carry is too sacred to be placed on an unstable foundation. And so, God made you wait, not to punish you, but to preserve you. While others ran ahead, you sat still. While others were being celebrated, you were being cultivated. It felt unfair. You watched people with impure motives rise, watched the dishonest succeed, watched the loud get noticed, and there you were, quiet, faithful, hidden. But that was the point. You were never forgotten. You were being forged, not in public applause, but in private surrender, in the kind of obedience that no one clapped for, in the kind of faith that made no sense to your natural mind but kept you rooted anyway. If only you could see what God was doing behind the veil during the silence. While you questioned, heaven was building. While you wept, angels were recording. While you walked through dry seasons, your roots were digging deeper, anchoring into the kind of soil that can weather any storm. Nothing was wasted. Every detour became depth. Every pause became purification. Every loss carved out space for legacy. And now, what you carry cannot be shaken. You don't just have information, you have impartation. Not theory, but testimony. Not titles, but oil. And here's what makes the divine delay beautiful. The things you're stepping into now were not delayed. They were perfectly timed. Had you received them earlier, they would have crushed you. But now, you're ready, not just to hold them, but to steward them, not just to walk in blessing, but to carry it with honor. God was not being cruel when He made you wait. He was being kind, because He saw what you couldn't. He saw the weight of influence. He saw the hidden agendas. He saw the people who looked like help, but were really traps. He saw what would have ensnared you, and so He hid you. And in that hiding, your identity was fortified. You no longer measure your worth by doors or titles or timelines. You've learned that delay doesn't mean denial, it means design. And now that you see it, you wouldn't trade the wilderness for anything. Because in the wilderness, you found God. In the silence, you learned His voice. And in the waiting, you were marked by wisdom that can't be taught, only received. Others who rise quickly burn out just as fast. But you're being launched, not pushed, commissioned, not coerced. And what heaven launches, no man can stop. Habakkuk 2:3 says, though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. You thought it was late, but it was only on the schedule of eternity. Your job now is simple. Keep moving at the speed of obedience, not at the pace of pressure, not by the demands of culture, but in step with the Spirit. And if that means more waiting, let it be holy. Let it be patient. Let it be without panic. The world chases moments. You are being prepared for mandate. There's a difference. Moments pass. Mandates last. And when God builds a thing slowly, it's because He intends for it to remain. So release the frustration. Let go of the timelines you were taught to idolize. Heaven isn't rushing. You're not behind. You're not late. You're right on time. Even the tears you cried in delay, He kept them, bottled them, measured them against the weight of what's to come. And when the moment arrives, and it is arriving, you'll see why it had to be this way, why you couldn't skip steps, why you had to stay behind when others ran ahead. Because what He's about to trust you with requires a kind of maturity you couldn't have accessed through speed. It had to be forged in patience, grounded in purity, carried in humility. You are not just receiving the promise, you are becoming the kind of person who can protect it. There is a rest that comes when you stop fighting divine timing, when you realize that the God who called you also controls the calendar, that He is not slack concerning His promises, that if it has not happened yet, it is not because you are disqualified, but because He is still preparing the fullness of what your name is tied to. Chosen one, you're stepping into a season where everything delayed will begin to make sense. The alignments will be obvious. The timing will be clean. The weight you carry will feel natural because your spirit has grown to match it. You will no longer be overwhelmed by what you prayed for. You'll be ready. Something sacred is unfolding in the unseen. Your scroll has been opened. Not the kind of scroll written on paper, but the one etched into your very being before time began. You felt its stirrings, a divine unease that refuses to let you settle, a pull toward more, a knowing that you were born not merely to exist, but to execute. This isn't spiritual hype. This is covenant reality. Heaven doesn't speak in accidents. And when your scroll is revealed, it's not to entertain your curiosity, it's to awaken your responsibility. There is a blueprint tied to your name, an assignment crafted with detail beyond your comprehension. It accounts for your strengths, your weaknesses, your lineage, and even your wounds. Nothing is overlooked, nothing wasted. God does not write in fragments, He authors in full. And now, that scroll is no longer sealed. It's open, and heaven is watching. Will you walk it out? This is where many stumble, because the moment your destiny begins to manifest, the weight of obedience becomes real. It's no longer about potential. It's about movement, about living what you've heard, praying what you've seen, becoming what you've carried. You are not here to entertain revelation. You are here to embody it. The open scroll demands response, and response often means release. Releasing old mindsets, releasing familiar idols, releasing false names you clung to when you didn't know who you were. Because the scroll doesn't accommodate compromise. It calls you upward, and the upward call is never comfortable. It stretches you into places your flesh resists. It leads you where applause fades and clarity burns. You start seeing things differently, hearing with more precision, feeling weight in places others only sense wind. That's how you know your scroll isn't just unsealed. It's speaking. And when it speaks, you can't pretend not to hear. Every delay, every internal war, every holy disruption, it's been building toward this moment. The scroll wasn't unsealed suddenly. It was unfolding in layers. With every yes, a new portion revealed. With every act of obedience, a new line understood. God gives according to your readiness, not your curiosity. You've wondered why others moved faster, why their paths seemed clearer. But their scrolls are not your scroll. Their assignments are not yours. What they carry may look similar, but the substance is different. You're not called to imitate, you're called to remember. Because what you're stepping into isn't foreign. It's ancient. It was yours before the world ever offered you its counterfeit. That's why the resistance has been so personal. The enemy's attack has been against your memory. If he can make you forget who you are, he can delay what was written. If he can distort your identity, he can derail your obedience. But now, the remembering is happening. The scroll is not just being read, it's being written into your actions. Your life is now a manuscript of divine intention, and it won't always be easy. People will misunderstand your choices. They'll question your silence. They'll wonder why you left, why you shifted, why you don't entertain what you used to. But they weren't there when the scroll whispered. They didn't hear the weight. They didn't see the vision. And they don't need to, because obedience doesn't ask for validation. It moves with reverence. David didn't need Saul's armor. He moved with what was in his hand, because he had already heard what was in his scroll. Esther didn't need a public prophecy. She heard destiny in the trembling voice of Mordecai. Jesus didn't need constant confirmation. He knew what was written and lived from that place. Now it's your turn, not to perform your scroll, but to become it. To let every breath align with the line written in fire across your spirit. To speak only what carries weight. To walk only where heaven has ordered your steps. This is not about perfection, it's about posture. A posture of surrender, of devotion, of relentless yes. Revelation 10:9-10. Pascal's ints a clear picture. Take it and eat it. The angel said, it will turn your stomach sour, but in your mouth it will be as sweet as honey. That is the scroll, beautiful in revelation, weighty in obedience. And still, you say yes. Even when the yes costs you comfort. Even when the scroll leads you into hidden seasons. Because now, you know what it means. It means you're trusted. It means you're marked. It means you're walking in agreement with what was written long before your name was spoken by human lips. You don't need signs when you have memory. You don't need applause when you carry assignment. And you don't need a crowd when the cloud has moved. The scroll is yours now. Let it speak through your decisions. Let it sing in your intercession. Let it blaze through your boldness. This is not just your season, it's your summons. And heaven is watching, not with pressure, but with joy. Because the one they wrote about has finally remembered. You were never meant to rise gently. You were designed to rise through fire. Chosen one. The flame around you was never meant to consume you, it was meant to reveal you. You weren't born for comfort, you were born for combustion, for awakening, for disruption. That's why you felt pressure from every side. That's why your life has been marked by intensity. Because the ones who carry divine fire cannot live lukewarm. You've been walking through a furnace season, and though no one could see it, your soul has been on the verge of collapse. Tears in secret. Battles no one knew. Nights when sleep never came. Only the haunting silence of heaven's process. You weren't being abandoned. You were being refined. Burned. Not out of cruelty, but for clarity. Because fire doesn't just destroy. Fire distinguishes. It burns away what cannot remain. It strips false layers. It silences every imitation of identity. And in the heat of that fire, what remains is the real you, the one forged in glory. Not pain. The one that darkness fears. The one that trials cannot shake. You are emerging. Stronger. Quieter. Sharper. Holy. Don't mourn what the fire took. Mourn what tried to hide behind your comfort. Mourn the fear that whispered, stay small, because the fire exposed it. And now you see clearly there was never anything safe about being chosen, but there was always something sacred. The ones God uses most are often the ones He refines longest. Because weight requires integrity. Glory demands purity. And you, chosen one, have been entrusted with both. He didn't forget you in the furnace. He watched over you, measured the heat, timed the burn, never 1 second longer than necessary. You thought you were losing yourself, but you were being peeled back to truth. Even your voice sounds different now, because purity changes frequency. Your prayer life carries weight. Your presence shifts rooms. You don't even have to say much. Your stillness speaks. And that's not pride. That's the proof of process. That's what the fire leaves behind. The world teaches you to fear the flame, but in the kingdom, fire is a friend. It doesn't chase you, it chooses you. When the bush burned before Moses, it wasn't a threat, it was an invitation, a calling, a summons into divine mission. That's what the fire has been doing to you. Not punishing, preparing, not tormenting, tempering. Because gold is not formed in shadow, it's revealed in flame. You've walked through betrayals that scorched your trust, disappointments that seared your heart, delays that almost smothered your passion. But you are still here, not bitter, but burning, not damaged, but dangerous, because you carry what others lost, holy endurance. The flames have taught you how to walk through what should have broken you. You now carry the grace of someone who has danced with fire and not been devoured. As we read in Isaiah 43, when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned, the flames will not set you ablaze. That is not a metaphor for you. That is a memory. You lived it, you survived it, and now you shine from it. Chosen one. Stop hiding your ashes. They are your crown. The enemy tried to bury you in heat, not realizing he was activating your name. And now, every place you walk, you carry permission for others to rise. Because what burned you also blessed you. This is why you never fit in. Why the ordinary never satisfied you. Because something inside you knew you were marked for a fiery rise. You carry the spirit of those who cannot be tamed. You are one of the wild ones, set apart, sealed, and sent. The furnace was never the end. It was the forging ground. And now you stand, not just alive but anointed. Let hell take note. You were forged in fire. You were refined in delay. You were trained in silence. And now you are unstoppable. Type 444. If the fire has shaped you. If you feel the flames behind you and the purpose before you, let it be your declaration. I was born in fire, and I rise in glory. They'll regret how they treated you. Not because vengeance is yours, but because vindication belongs to the Lord. You were not overlooked. You were not forgotten. You were not disposable. You were hidden for a time and misunderstood for a reason. And now that the seal has been revealed and the fire has marked you, the contrast between how they treated you and who you are will become undeniable. There were those who saw your vulnerability and mistook it for weakness, who saw your quiet and assumed you had nothing to say, who dismissed your presence, unaware that your silence was filled with glory waiting to be released. They judged you by external measures, but heaven had already weighed you and called you worthy. You tried to love people from a pure place, and they mishandled your heart. You showed up with honor, and they responded with sarcasm. You spoke gently, and they returned with coldness. And still, you stayed faithful. Still, you stayed kind. You kept sowing love in dry places, even when the soil was hostile. That was not foolishness, that was obedience. Because chosen ones don't match energy, they carry presence. And your presence was holy. Even when you didn't feel powerful, you weren't supposed to fight back. You weren't supposed to explain yourself to those unwilling to see. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was prophetic restraint. You weren't being passive, you were being obedient to the one who said, "Vengeance is mine." Now, watch what God does. Not to shame them, not to exalt you, but to expose the truth. He will lift you in such a way that it becomes clear you were always chosen, not because you were the loudest, not because you had the most influence, but because you never abandoned your yes. You stayed when others fled. You forgave when bitterness would have been easier. You surrendered when pride said fight. And for every tear sown in dishonor, a harvest is coming in glory. People who once whispered about you will be forced to watch what God does through you. The ones who said you were too sensitive will witness the authority now dripping from your voice. The ones who thought you were irrelevant will see the weight of heaven rest on your name, not because you sought it, but because you were sealed for it. This is what happens when you endure the crushing with humility. When you don't let pain pollute your posture, when you let God form you in the shadows, your rising becomes undeniable, and it will preach louder than any defense you could have given. You don't need to circle back and prove anything. You don't need to outshine them. You only need to walk in what's already been written, because heaven has a way of putting light on what the world tried to dim. And make no mistake, this rising is not about revenge. It's about redemption. God is redeeming your name, restoring what was stolen, rebuilding what was torn down. And He's doing it not just for your sake, but so others can believe again. Because there are people who watched what happened to you. They saw the rejection. They witnessed the unfairness. And your story will become proof that God is still just, still faithful, still close to the brokenhearted. You didn't ask for this. You didn't seek a spotlight. But the glory that follows obedience cannot be hidden. And when it rests on you, it calls everything around you to attention. Not in arrogance, in awe. Psalm 23. 5 declares, You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. This is the reality of a chosen one who waited well. Your anointing isn't private, it overflows. Let them see it. Not for your validation, but for God's vindication. Let them witness how stillness built something deeper than status. How your devotion carved a path that platforms never could. Let them watch in silence as God confirms what they couldn't comprehend. Your posture will say more than your rebuttals ever could. Your peace will convict louder than your explanations. And your fruit will speak for itself. Chosen one, do not become bitter in the rise. Do not let success become the language of spite. Stay holy. Stay low. Stay grounded. The very ones who laughed may someday come back, not to apologize, but to seek the God who sustained you. Make room for that. Let your heart remain open to the broken, because what broke you once may return in need of healing, and you'll have the oil. You never needed revenge. You only needed time. Time for the truth to emerge. Time for the scroll to be read aloud. Time for the harvest to rise from the soil of your silence. They'll regret how they treated you, not because you win, but because they realize they mishandled something holy. And in that realization, may mercy still meet them. Because this was never about proving them wrong. It was always about walking in what was always right. Your life is a message now. Not a quiet suggestion. Not a passive whisper. A declaration. A prophetic sound in the spirit that cannot be ignored. You've become what others only talk about. Not because you wanted attention, but because you chose obedience. And obedience always speaks, sometimes louder than any sermon. You don't carry theory. You carry evidence. Evidence that God still calls, still refines, still restores. Your very existence is an altar. Every scar, a testimony. Every delay, a timeline of trust. You walk with the proof of fire and the fragrance of surrender. People won't understand how you carry so much weight and walk so lightly. They won't get why your joy doesn't match your battle. Why your presence shifts the room though you say nothing. That's what happens when someone walks out of crushing and into commission. You don't just recover, you radiate it. You're not waiting for approval anymore. You're not chasing recognition. You've stopped needing to be seen, because you now know you've been sent. Everything about you has changed. Your silence now speaks. Your laughter carries layers. Your tears birth movements. You've become a holy contradiction, wounded but whole, hidden but loud in the spirit, broken yet birthing. You're not just chosen, you're walking prophecy. The reason your presence feels heavier now is because you've become a carrier. The word lives inside you, not just memorized, but incarnated. You speak with the weight of someone who has survived every lie sent to bury them. You release with the purity of one who didn't compromise when it was easier. And now, your journey becomes a mirror for others. They'll watch you and realize it's possible. Possible to be set apart in a world gone numb. Possible to remain faithful when everything says quit. Possible to come out of wilderness without bitterness and with blueprints. Because you weren't just sent to rise. You were sent to ignite. Others will catch flame from your life. People who were almost done will breathe again when they see you. Your alignment is more than personal, it's prophetic. Someone's deliverance is tied to your yes. Someone's breakthrough is wrapped in your obedience. That's the weight and beauty of being chosen. It's not about being elevated. It's about being entrusted. Heaven trusted you to carry glory with reverence, to rise without arrogance, to speak without exploitation. And that's what sets you apart. You walk differently because you remember the cost. You don't need to pretend you made it. You remember the crushing. That memory keeps you grounded and useful. You have nothing to prove now, only light to release. And what you carry will outlive you. Generations will feel it. Bloodlines will shift from it. Cities will echo with it. Because once the fire touches a life like yours, the world cannot remain the same. You're not just doing something great, you're becoming someone weighty. That's different. That lasts. It was never about becoming famous. It was always about becoming faithful. 2 Corinthians 4:7 reminds us. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. The treasure is real. The jar may be cracked, but the oil flows. That's the paradox of being chosen. You don't walk around glowing because you're perfect. You walk with authority because you survived what should have killed you, and you didn't let it harden you. This isn't performance. This is prophetic fire, and it deserves to be carried further. So if this message has stirred your spirit, if you felt heaven rise in your chest, don't keep it to yourself. Like it, so the message is preserved. Share it with someone whose fire is flickering. Subscribe so you stay connected. This is not just a word, it's a movement. And if it's in your heart to partner with this flow to help us continue speaking into dry bones, hidden warriors, and rising chosen ones, you're welcome to support this mission. Every gift, every seed, helps the fire go further. Not for fame, for flames. Because the ones who are rising now will shake the earth, and you are one of them. You stand at a threshold, now. One foot still planted in the comfort of old patterns, the other trembling at the edge of obedience. And make no mistake, the edge is thin. This isn't a casual place. This is holy ground, where mercy stretches like a thread and rebellion can sever everything. You've been given many chances, over and over. God extended grace, pulled you back from compromise, whispered warnings in the night. But this moment is different. This isn't just an invitation, it's a line in the spirit. What you decide now carries weight far beyond your feelings, because the longer you ignore conviction, the quieter it gets. And when mercy keeps speaking, but obedience keeps delaying, eventually God lets people walk, not in anger, but in justice. This is the urgency. You are not guaranteed another moment like this, another nudge this strong, another whisper this loud. Heaven has not activated your name for you to return to spiritual sleep. You are not just delaying your assignment, you are risking everything written about you. The line is mercy or judgment. Not because God is cruel, but because God is just. He will not keep pouring into hands that refuse to open. He will not continue assigning weight to hearts that still flirt with disobedience. You cannot walk in power and stay in rebellion. The anointing will not rest where compromise reigns, and many are losing their ears in this hour. Not physical hearing, but spiritual discernment. They've heard so much truth with no response that their hearts are now calloused. They think they're fine, but they no longer feel, no longer weep, no longer sense when the Spirit pulls back. They are deceived, not because God abandoned them, but because they ignored too long. That cannot be your story. You still feel. You still tremble. You still pause when conviction hits. That is mercy. But it is not eternal. Conviction is a gift, and gifts ignored too long become judgment. This isn't about legalism. This is about lordship. You can't ask Jesus to be your savior while refusing to make him your king. He doesn't do divided thrones, and every time you delay your surrender, you empower what he died to destroy. There is a holiness returning to the earth, a sharpness, a separation between casual Christianity and consecrated ones. And the chosen are not the most gifted, they are the most obedient. The ones who respond when God says, now, not later, not next week, now, because partial obedience is still rebellion. You may think you're waiting on God, but God may be waiting on you, waiting for your final yes, waiting for your full surrender, waiting for your decision to cut off everything, still trying to live in your spirit, rent-free. Because the scroll doesn't wait forever. It's either fulfilled or forfeited. And some are only one compromise away from silence. From heaven withdrawing that prompting, from the Spirit pulling back, from the voice that once stirred them going quiet. That is judgment. Not because God changed his mind, but because you kept ignoring his voice. This is not fear-mongering. This is reality. You don't get to dance between light and darkness and expect peace. There is no neutral ground. You're either in or out, either surrendered or in rebellion, either rising or drifting, and you know it. That's why you've felt the shaking. That's why comfort doesn't satisfy anymore. That's why the things that used to numb you don't even work. God is not allowing your heart to harden. He's still calling you, but this call has an expiration date. He is holy, and he will not let his presence be treated casually. The longer you play with the fire of disobedience, the more likely you are to lose the flame of his voice. That is what happened to Saul, anointed, but rebellious. And God said, I have rejected him, not because he lacked passion, but because he lacked obedience. You are not like Saul, but you must not become like him. God is raising a different kind now, not platform chasers, not manipulators of grace, but fire bearers, ones who fear his voice more than they crave applause, ones who weep when he is grieved, ones who tremble at his word. That's who you are becoming, but only if you choose. Joshua said, choose this day whom you will serve. Not tomorrow, not when it's convenient. This day, because if you don't choose, the world will choose for you. It will disciple you with lies, entertain you into apathy, numb you with distraction. And before you realize it, you'll wake up distant from everything holy and not know how you got there. But today you still hear. The Spirit is still near. The invitation is still open. The scroll is still readable, and the fire has not gone out. But this moment requires response. You must cross the line with full surrender or drift into deception, thinking you have more time. You don't. You carry kingdom codes. Not church culture. Not borrowed belief, but embedded instructions etched into your spirit by the breath of God. These codes are not activated by emotions. They are unlocked through obedience. Every step you take in surrender reveals more of what you're holding. And what you're holding is not just for you, it's for regions, for generations, for gates that will not open until your feet touch the ground. You've been wondering why the resistance has followed you. Even in seasons of stillness, it's because of what you carry. The enemy has never warred against your talent. He's warred against your assignment, and that assignment has weight. It includes people who don't even know your name yet. Rooms you haven't entered. Chains you haven't seen but will break. There's a reason your life has been marked with tension. You are not just gifted, you are gated. Access doesn't come easily when you carry keys that open ancient locks. Your journey has felt longer because your scroll is layered. The cost has been heavier because the reach is deeper. And still, you said, yes. These kingdom codes are not taught. They are transferred through fire, through tears, through wilderness nights where no one watched, but heaven recorded every movement. Now you walk as a living vault. What you carry opens things, frees things, builds things, and no one can fake what you carry because it was forged. Psalm 24:7 speaks to your presence. Lift up your heads, you gates, be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. You don't just walk into places, you unlock them. When you enter, heaven enters. When you speak, regions shake. You were never meant to blend, you were meant to break through. Walk with reverence. Stay yielded. You carry kingdom codes, and the time has come to release them. Chosen one. If you've made it here, it's because heaven brought you through every fire, every silence, every rejection, and every delay for this exact moment. You are not the same. The seal is upon you. The scroll has been opened. Your name has been activated in the Spirit. You are no longer waiting for permission to rise. You are the permission. You are the move. You are the fire. This was not just a message. This was a marking, a call into fullness, into depth, into obedience without delay. You know now that you're not crazy, you're called. You weren't abandoned, you were appointed. You weren't disqualified, you were being developed. And now, you are walking with clarity, carrying kingdom codes that hell cannot decrypt and man cannot explain. Let the fire on your life speak louder than your history. Let the weight of your yes silence every lie ever spoken against you. Let the glory covering you testify of a God who still chooses ordinary vessels for eternal purposes. If this word stirred your spirit, don't scroll past in silence. Like this message, so it continues, reaching those still in the fire. Share it with another chosen one who's forgetting who they are. Comment, I will obey. Let heaven and hell see your alignment. Subscribe so you don't miss the next word, tailor-made for your calling. And if you feel led to pour back into this mission, to help this prophetic fire reach deeper, wider, higher There's space to partner, not out of pressure, but out of purpose. Your seed helps carry this message to those still searching for their scroll. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of your assignment.